without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video today.
The Officer Tatum YouTube channel is ran by Brandon Tatum. He's from Fort Worth, Texas. After graduating high school, he was an All American football player and went on to play at the University of Arizona, after which he became a police officer at the Tucson Police Department for 6 years, qualifying as a SWAT operator and field training officer and public information officer. He then became a part time YouTuber, going viral in 2016 and in 2017. He then started to support Donald Trump, and the rest is history. Looking at him now, he has 3 million subscribers. He's one of the most known black conservatives in America. And one of the reasons why Brandon Tatum is so big is not because he goes off on white liberals. He continuously criticizes the black community. He is, in my honest opinion, the black voice that says a lot of things that certain white conservatives are thinking. Brandon Tatum goes out of his way to insult black people, past or present, at any available chance that he gets. And here's an example.
Before they show the example, I'm not gonna lie, he definitely says some wild shit that I would, you know, categorize as wild. Um, but I also think he's trying to do something somewhat positive and just reinforce the fact that we can, as a culture, we can be productive members of society and we don't have to, be on this tomfoolery, right? Jump into the narrative of what our culture is. It's like, where you see in a lot of situations, anytime somebody does something that pertains to, like, for example, the, let's say, quote unquote, the American dream, try to get a good job, try to get a house, regardless of how you feel about the American dream, if it's real or not. But when you see black men try to do that, they get a lot of, oh, you're Uncle Tom, you're not for the culture, you're not for this. And I would argue that progression isn't just white people style. It's not just what white people do. And I never understood how people can say that and justify that, and just say, oh, well, I'm not going to do that because that's what white folks be doing. Like, no, we all want to be a productive member of society and make money and be able to live our lives. And there are things that are a part of the culture that I will admit I even do, but there are some things that are toxic by nature. But the problem with how Officer Tatum looks at it, which is what I think, is the fact that he equates that to black culture, where you could see that in other cultures. You could see that being done by other people, not just by black people. So I think that's kind of where he gets a bad rap, even though he does say foul shit sometimes. And there are a lot of black conservatives, quote unquote, out there who do tend to dunk on black people for no reason, which is like, bro, this is your race, this is your culture. Why not try to build versus try to just shit on people?
Brandon Tatum has changed his commentary to become more global, and that's happened within the last month. And it really started on September 2nd when he posted something very controversial. I stand with Israel. Now, most conservatives, such as Brandon Tatum, or even the black or white conservatives, typically are against liberals of the LGBTQ. They have a problem with it. And also, black on black crime and just the black community in general. Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, and even people like Myron would all agree with that. But the difference that you're seeing now is that the black conservatives, or conservatives in general, are split with Israel. Donald Trump stands also with Israel, but there are certain people like Candace Owens and Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit podcast who absolutely don't stand with Israel. Even certain extreme whites like Nick Fuentes. And so this was a particular change that folks started to notice in his content strategy. He then interviewed Prime Minister Netanyahu on his channel, and this is what was discussed.
In Israel, if you actually talk to the majority of Christians,
Which, before we get into that clip, I just want to say, like, this whole Israel Palestine shit, like, this is wild. Like, all of a sudden, you know, Bibi Netanyahu, or Benjamin Netanyahu, I don't know how to say his last name, but regardless, he's all over the place talking about all the issues that he's dealing with. He's doing what some would call a propaganda tour. And I'm not gonna sit here and try to act like I'm the most well versed person in everything that's going on. But one thing's for certain and two things for sure. the Gaza stuff is wild. If you look at some of the videos, some of the pictures, and some of the things going on over there, it's like, who are y'all really fighting? Like, y'all just trying to eliminate Gaza completely. And again, you have the October 7th thing that happened, and I can understand that. But at what point do you say, all right, enough is enough? It's like, it's the same thing with, America going to Iraq and Afghanistan. More specifically, Afghanistan. Like, you're telling me that these dudes in caves with flip flops are a danger to our society because they hate freedom? Like, at some point in time, it gets to a point where it's like, all right, enough is enough. Like, what more do we need to do? Why do we even care about what they're worried about over there? And that might be too much of a simplistic point of view, but it is just my point of view. And so I think, first off, why are you even talking to him? That's crazy. But I mean, I guess I would interview anybody who wants to be interviewed, especially if they're prominent. But I'm willing to bet he didn't ask hard questions.
Talk to them. You'll see what they say. They say Israel is the only place where we're respected and protected.
But the part that really was interesting was this one.
And I can attest to that as a Christian who went to Israel. I spent 2 weeks there with the church.
I have a lot of questions. First off, where did the kid learn the behavior from? Number one. Number two, this is why people shouldn't talk about topics they don't know about. Now, I've done my research. I grew up in a religious family. I've done the Bible studies and all that stuff. And if you look at what he just said, where Israel is the safest place for Christianity, if you look at history, Judaism and Christianity always conflicted. So, like, I don't really get all the way back to as far as known history, they always conflicted. They always had issues. As a matter of fact, the Christians, or the Jews and the Christians at one point were kind of on the same side. And then the fact that Christians were willing to turn the other cheek and were willing to accept other people was what soured the relationship. So I don't get that thought process. Plus, if you read the Bible and know anything about the Bible, it was the Jews who crucified Jesus. So what are we talking about here? Like, I'm not an educator here, but I know enough to be able to say that. So what is his black ass talking about? So now I don't know, man. Let Yo, I can't believe he really said that. Like, that's a wild thought process. Like, first off, why does this keep doing this? Give me 1 second, guys, because let's get back to this video. Like, regardless though, I think that was kind of a silly point. Like, a kid spit on you guys. It's like, where did it come from? Who taught him that? Why would that happen? Like, you can even see BB blinking a bunch of times. Like, let's go back real quick. Look how much BB's blinking.
Presentation of who we are.
Watch.
We love you guys. You guys are always welcome here. And I have to say, no adults gave us any grief. We had no issues whatsoever in our experience there. It was actually an amazing experience.
Boy, you don't sit your stupid ass down. Who the think you is? Sit your stupid ass down. Who the think you is?
So Tatum said he was there for 2 weeks, and it was an incident where a young kid spit on a Christian pastor. Now, from what I have researched, this is something that is not uncommon, meaning that it does happen to Christians when they go to Israel.
That's crazy.
And of course, if you look at the conservative movement, many of them align themselves with Israel because it's the home of Christianity. However, what I've been told is that certain Jews don't respect Christians at all because they view it as it being a false religion, because Jews are still waiting for the Messiah or believe the Messiah never came. And so that could never be Jesus Christ. All right. Exactly. So now you have a disparity between Christians and Jews, where Christians respect Jews because Jews are the foundation of Christianity. And then Christianity looks at Jews as not being legit. So this is why sometimes you get people being spit on when they go to Israel. Now, once that happened, people really, really disliked Brandon Tatum's commentary with this. And also the fact that they felt that Brandon Tatum, during this entire interview, that Brandon Tatum gave a softball interview to Netanyahu, not really answering a lot of tough questions. And whenever he did ask questions, it was already pre-made with basically a lot of bias towards Palestine.
Some of the news outlets are just pitching lies every day. The emaciated children with no rebuttal.
Let's see what Netanyahu says to this.
They're lying about a genocide. They're showing all these videos. That this is why I wanted to do this interview and get it out there, because I have not seen a legitimate video of some of the starvation claims.
So if you can,
Bro, what? You can go on Twitter right now and go, like, what is he talking about? Okay, I'm not even on any side. I'm against war. I get it. They attacked you, attack them back, fine. But like the continuance back and forth and the trying to convince us of things is wild. That's not even a question. That's not even a question. Like, I got questions for Netanyahu that are better than that. That I could, it'd be like, hey, why people are calling this a genocide. What do you have to say about that? Give me your opinion on that. Like, you know what I mean? What about all these videos coming out of Gaza and all these videos on X? What would you say about those videos? Are they real? Do you think they're AI? Like, real questions. If you were going to report on something, ask real questions, not this bullshit.
you can see here, before he even allows Netanyahu to answer the question, he's already, pretty much protecting him from a negative response.
Exactly.
He's saying, I haven't seen anything, that they have done. I don't see any emaciation. I don't see anybody doing this and that. So when Netanyahu responds, basically, he'll have an opportunity to address it very easily, okay? And Netanyahu will respond that, hey, we've been at war with Iran and people have been attacking us, basically saying that, hey, Israel is on the defensive and we don't do these things that people are saying. But Myron, who's reacting to the video, is going to point out this.
At these prisons, they torture the Palestinian guys. They them. They do horrible things to them, right, to demoralize them. Some of it was caught on video, okay?
And I'm not even a Myron defender. There's a lot of things I don't like that he says. Well, I shouldn't say I don't like, that I don't agree with. That, there are things I agree with that he does say, but a lot of things he does say is just wild as well. And it's for the internet, really. That's what it really is for. It's for the views, because you can't live real life with some of the perspectives he has. But on this one, he's kind of on point. I saw the video. Like, you see some of the things that these people go through. It's the same thing as like Guantanamo Bay and the shit that we did in for the Iraq War. And as soon as the Twin Towers happen, which tomorrow will be 9/11. So it's just like, as soon as that happened and we passed the Patriot Act, what did? We put a bunch of people in prison and did all kinds of shit to them. And the American people were cool with it. Why? Because we were attacked. It's just like, you see this again. And so he's actually right there. And, I would agree. That would be something. That's a good question to ask. Hey, what about that video? What do you say? What do you have to say about that video? What do you have to say about the protesters? Those protesters remind me of the protesters here defending people who are committing crimes or are illegal here. You have like the dude who stabbed the girl on the fucking train. Like, there are people defending him, saying he had mental illness. Like, bro, I don't care what you have, bro. You need to be put under the jail. Like, excuse me? He needs, like, what? Oh my God. Don't get me started. I gotta finish this video.
Myron is saying allegedly there's a video out where you had people in the Jewish military that were basically assaulting these Palestinian men, and doing so by forcible clapping, right? And then when those guys got fired or arrested, they were trying to protect these guys. And if that video is out there and it's accurate, it would disprove that what Netanyahu is saying, that in fact these things are happening, that Israel is doing at least certain things to Palestine that they don't want to take credit for. But the question is this, why is it that Brandon Tatum is getting involved in this in the first place?
This is actually one of the funniest stories that I've seen all week, okay? So this guy is a YouTuber who never used to talk about the Israeli regime, like literally not at all. And then out of nowhere, like a month ago, he started doing Zionist propaganda, And it's really weird. It happened to coincide around the same time that it was revealed that the Israeli regime was spending hundreds of millions of dollars on Hasbara, on influencers, and in the media, like Google, how they spent $50 million there in order to try to change the narrative, because people in the West, especially in America, not only oppose the genocide that the Israeli regime is carrying out in Gaza, but they're starting to have an unfavorable view of Israel in general.
That's another thing. This dude BB was on the Nelk Boys. He was on the Patrick Red David podcast. Now he's on Officer Tatum. He's doing all the interviews he can. Why? Because the publicity is bad? Like what? Again, where you have a maximum amount of people who are saying, hey, there's smoke here. Hey, there's smoke here. Hey, there's smoke here. Would you not look and then believe there's fire? If there's smoke, there's fire. Like I understand there are situations, specifically on the internet, where people just say things and it's not true, or we have situations where somebody will be blamed for something, or even like you see it on Facebook all the time. You'll have like, oh, a player was traded to a team. It's not real. It was a bullshit post, right? The post was never made. This is not like those. And there's plenty of evidence to see that. Charlie Kirk is another one who's been defending Israel. There's been a multitude of people who are defending Israel. And I'm not sitting here saying that they shouldn't, or, Israel's wrong and all this other stuff. But at some point in time, you got to look at the situation and the facts that are being presented. And you have to make a conclusion. And if your conclusion is, well, there's nothing going on, I haven't seen anything that I believe is legitimate, everything is AI, like, there's only two possible reasons. Either you're paid off or you're really fucking stupid. Like, and I don't want to assume that the man is dumb, but I can't even form a sentence on how silly it would be to think that the things that you see are not going on. Now, am I willing to believe they might not be going on as bad as they may seem? Yeah, that's a possibility. But it's still pretty bad. You see it. You see all this stuff going on. You see the kids that are emaciated, basically starving, and who holds control to that part of the world is Israel. Who's delivering aid is Israel. Like, so at some point in time, it's like causation has to have correlation at some point in time. The first 6 months, okay, cool. But now we're over a year into this, or at a year, I'm not sure. Maybe 2 years. I don't know the exact time frame, but we're at a long time of this. It's not been just 2-3 months of this. When do you get past it?
So basically, Brandon Tatum is involved in what is known as Hasbara, okay? And so now Israel is spending a lot of money basically trying to get people back on their side. Netanyahu is doing a lot of interviews with a bunch of influential YouTubers. So now what are we also seeing here? Ian Smith Sr., you are an effing maggot, right? With an M, but take off the M and put in another word, and then that's a slur, right? You can guess what that is. Michael Ross says, bruh, you're not a Christian or God-fearing man. You are an effing scum B who loves blank in destruction. Thou shalt not kill. You're a hypocrite and a godless demon.
Damn!
Right?
Now then, what happened is, after receiving all the criticism, Brandon Tatum doubled down and he posted this: keep going until the job is done. Now, even Myron gets involved, right? So Myron comments on X, supporting the Jews is an L, Brandon. They're going to use you to push their Hespire, which is their agenda. You are dumb. Word to them, okay? Wake up, bro. Brandon says, bro, I have common sense, unlike you.
He has common sense. I don't think common sense is so common. I think this is a perfect example of picking the wrong side. I think this is a perfect example of when you make content that's not true to yourself and true to the beliefs you hold, or when it's tailored to being content that you want certain demographic to appreciate, which we know what demographic that is when he speaks the way he does about black people. It's clearly not black people. You're gonna find yourself in moments like these Like, there's nothing wrong with having controversial views. There's nothing wrong with believing certain things that not everybody believes. But to sit here and say that you have common sense because you support essentially a war that, regardless of what you think of either side, one side has all the weapons and a lot of weapons, while another side does not have as many weapons. And it is what it is. It is like there's nothing you can do about that. That's what it is. So it's like, how do you allow that? How can you, how can you be okay with that? Or how can you call that common sense and say, hey, yeah, yeah, no, I'm on the right side. Like, bro, you got you got bigger issues, bro. And it's not common sense.
Woo! We will debate soon enough. Now we start to see a lot.
If he debates Myron will kill him. And I'm not gonna say I don't like Myron. I just don't like some of his thought processes, some of his opinions. But he's well versed in this whole thing, and I've seen him demolish other people about this with points that even if I don't agree with, I'm like, damn, that's a good point. Like, how can you refute this?
A lot of the racism coming towards Brandon from the whites. Tang Wang, this you, a chilling portrayal of a typical house in, right? Sad music. I love Israel. They only spit on me once while I was there.
Got him! Got him!
Now then Brandon Tatum responds to a tweet that somebody made about him, or a repost, right? Look at this clown. They grew up in an empty building, and this little wussy's calling me a, well, let me just say, monkey for supporting it. A little dude who's been a fraud his entire life calling names. Stop it. This is Dan Brazilian, and he says, cheering for deleting children isn't cool, you dumb primate or monkey.
And Dan got some wild takes. Dan Bozerian got wilder takes than Tatum does, and maybe as wild as Myron, but not even that wild. So again, this is just people cannibalizing each other to the point where no one gets anything across. And you got to think to yourself again. You got to think to yourself, like, why is there so much propaganda? Why is there so much out there for Israel? And then it's the normal, regular, everyday people who are like, yo, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't sound right. I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying either side is right. I'm just saying, look at the information on both sides. Look at what you can find versus what you can't find. Look at what it looks like versus what it doesn't look like, and make your conclusion. Clearly, Brandon's on a side that not a lot of people agree with him. And the only people who agree with him are people who are paying him, which is evident by what he's talking about, because he clearly doesn't know his history. Just that comment about saying that a little kid spit on you is wild. Like, that's beyond me. I don't know how you get that far. Like, how did BB lose signal immediately? I would just unplug that shit. But like, yeah, I don't know what happened, bro. We lost signal. Like, but I'm gonna just let it.
Okay. Now again, Dan Brazilian, hey, he hangs out with some black dudes like Myron from Fresh and Fit. I mean, hey, listen, if you don't like what he's saying, again, that's cool. But then now you're calling Brandon Tatum a monkey, right? And then now this is something that, we talk about racism, white supremacy, and how this don't really exist anymore. And now here's Brandon Tatum. He's getting it right from the fan base that basically he's built over the years. They are now calling him these things, right? He's getting his Negro wake up call. Now, then he goes and he tries to defend himself also for his stance. He says, I also assume the kid did that because he thought we were Christians. However, I don't really know. We had regular clothes on walking around Jerusalem. He made a lucky guess. Thousands of people we were around and had no issues. We couldn't go nowhere near Gaza. Wonder why. This is him blaming Palestine. And he also says the kid spat on the pastor who was with me, who had been to Israel over 40 times. Never had anything like that happen to him. No one spat on me. In America, a trans blank will delete you and your kids for being Christians. So I could go on and on.
Bro, what are you talking about? Not knowing your history is a problem here. Not understanding your history is a problem. Not even your history. History in general. Jews and Christianity have been at war for centuries, millennia. Like, as far back as in the Bible, they crucified Jesus. Like, what are you talking about? They they crucified Jesus. How much? They don't even believe Jesus Christ was the second coming. They still are waiting for the Messiah. That's their whole thought process. Which I'm not here to debate religion and say they are or they're right or they're wrong. I don't really care about that. But just to sit here and try to advocate for a side that actively dislikes the side you're on is not only ironic, but it's stupidity. And it goes to show you don't know the shit you're talking about. Because I'm just a random dude. I don't even got that much followers, and I know the difference. You got 3 million subscribers, and you don't know the difference. You ain't done your research. You got a whole team, and you haven't done your research, bro. Like that, my boy's hurting. And then the other part too is the fact that he talks shit about black people is wild. Like some of the things he says is beyond me. It's things that first off I would never say. And now a lot of the things that he says he's never been through, he's going through them right now. Even though you got to take it with a grain of salt because it is online and they are trolls. But you have some people who have prominent names like Dan Bilzerian who come out calling them all kinds of shit. That's a perfect example where, yeah, there might not be the level of racism or systemic racism that there was back in the 60s, but there still are some people who feel a certain type of way about somebody who's a certain skin color versus them, specifically when they say something they don't agree with, and he's going through it right now. So can you still say that? Oh well, it's completely dead, and we got to stop talking about it. I don't think we should talk about it from the victim perspective as we do. So that part I might agree with him on that, but to say it's completely dead, no, come on, man. You got to be realistic. It still lives in certain places, and you can see it. And perfect examples here.